Have you ever heard a critic reviewing a story be like, the tone is inconsistent, and leave it at that, like that's the end of the argument? Maybe they'll give examples or say things like, the tonal inconsistency is jarring, but sometimes it's just assumed that tonal consistency is desired in storytelling and inconsistency is bad, so no further explanation is needed. So recently I watched an SRK film where it begins with a cheery musical number followed by a bombing sequence that is played for laughs. It's just a building that is bombed. No one gets hurt, not even the cat, which is followed by another upbeat musical number. It even includes an Elvis Presley imitation bit. So, I thought I knew where this movie was going. Next the hero meets his match and the heroine. She one-ups him at his own game of reporting and journalism and tricks him, and she does her own upbeat dance about beating him. But little did I know that 20 minutes after this, we'd get riots. Yeah, violent riots. Violent riots and political conspiracy and corruption. That's a pretty big change to suddenly have an hour into the film. This huge shift in tone would make this movie bad because inconsistency is bad, right? Well, maybe. In my opinion, whether or not tonal inconsistency is considered bad in a story varies on a few key things. First is personal taste. I have a very high tolerance for things that are emotionally varied and over the top. However, some people might like things more consistent. The second factor is the format the story is told in. So like in visual media, like comics or film, you've got things like setting, design, acting style, soundtrack, etc. to keep things unified even when the tone changes. With literature, if you change the tone enough, you might actually wind up writing a different genre. This leads into the third factor, which is how tonal inconsistency is received in genre context. This obviously overlaps with format. Some genres are more flexible than others. For example, a heartwarming romance book or TV series has much more strict parameters than an isekai comic. An isekai comic can use all different types of tones and still be an isekai comic. The greatest realistic developer is a very, very, very good example of this. Is its tone all over the place? Oh yeah. Its changes in mood are kind of insane sometimes, with each scene having a really intense mood that aligns with whatever's going on, be it something comedic or emotional or action or so on. One chapter actually starts off with this love letter scene, and then we get an emotional flashback, which actually legit made me tear up. How can you start off with a dorky love letter scene and then throw a dead dog in there? That is a big tonal change. Yeah, so this comic has really big mood and tone changes, but is it still isekai? Yes, extremely. An isekai comic can mess around with tones, but it's not violating any genre rules by doing so. One could argue that big emotional ups and downs are actually kind of expected in some Korean and Japanese comics, but that is a whole other topic. On the other hand, if you have a heartwarming romance book or TV series that got too dark or too serious or even too goofy, at that point you're kind of changing the genre, and the readers or viewers will get very mad at you. But tone isn't just about the audience. After all, the creator is also choosing to change the tone, or at least one hopes that the creator is choosing to do this and it's not just an accident or was done for funsies with no real purpose. Creator intent is tricky because you can't know for sure what creators intended without hearing the creator, share that with you. But sometimes you can make reasonable guesses about intent, but at other times it's literally impossible. So, for example, let's look at a chapter in Lore Olympus, specifically a scene where Apollo is chasing Daphne in order to kill her, basically. She's found out a secret. He's going to kill her. Now, if you know the Apollo and Daphne story, like even a little, there's been this tension between them. You know things are going to end badly. So this is finally like the culmination of that. Things are going very badly. He's going to kill her. So this should be a scene which has been, built up to over the series of chapters, and it should be suspenseful and tense, right? Well, so when the scene starts, Apollo is trying to quote-unquote talk it out with her. Obviously he's still gonna hurt her, at least at this point. But at this point he says this absolute winner of a line. Safe space. Yeah, that's appropriate. Nothing makes the scene tense like a weird, very random, and kind of dated modern cultural reference. And then when he activates his, god powers and goes into kill mode, yes, this is a very appropriate expression. I want to feel afraid for Daphne, but this is kind of a dopey face, so it's kind of hard. But look, here. this is good. This expression is good. The line he says works. Nice. A tone that one would expect is conveyed here and in other panels in this scene. So now imagine if like the goofy lines were removed, the weird expressions were avoided, and you had more of, you know, this. The tension would be much, much higher, and it would be easier to get sucked into the scene and actually feel afraid for Daphne. I don't feel that afraid for her whenever he's saying stuff about safe space or is making this dopey little face. Also, a quick note, this scene with Apollo and Daphne, yeah, this is one scene. The greatest tape developer examples I gave earlier, those are two different scenes. They're in the same chapter, yes, but they are not the same scene. So it's not like he's getting a love letter or not getting a love letter and then thinking of his dead dog in the same scene. That would be absolutely insane. So it's two different scenes, so the tonal change is less jarring. Now, this isn't to say that you can't have jokes in an action scene or a tense scene or anything like that. It just needs to make some kind of internal sense. I'm going to use the greatest tape developer as an example again. There's the scene where a Leviathan is attacking the city and the main character is trying to communicate to his knight a plan for defeating the Leviathan from a distance. So when this exchange began, I was really excited because, okay, these characters do not have a great relationship, but it's been improving. So when this like RRR level of communication began to like save the day, I was like, I got so excited. I was like, oh, this is like RRR. Oh my gosh. This means they're like on a whole other level, right? Like this is all paying off. Like maybe they're becoming like real friends instead of this insane like frenemy kind of thing they have going on, right? Well, no, I was wrong. And this bit where the writer basically rose up my expectations and then destroyed my expectations. And it was hilarious because this makes sense to me as a reader. So first off, the situation is a severe one. Time is of the essence. So the main character, yeah, he would try to communicate his plan as quickly as possible. And yeah, this is pretty quick. Also, too, the relationship has been evolving. The main character trusts the knight, so it makes sense that he would take a chance and just trust that he would understand him, you know, miming the plan to him. And then the third thing is that they are not two characters who are generally on the same wavelength. So, like, yeah, of course he wouldn't understand him. Duh. Like, I could actually say more about why this scene does make sense, but we'll stop here. The main point is that, yes, it is a silly moment in an action scene, in a tense scene, but it's not too jarring or weird because it's 100% in character for them. So let us revisit the Apollo and Daphne scene. First, okay, I don't know about this expression, so I've read Lore Olympus at least twice, and I couldn't even begin to explain why he's making this face, except that Lore Olympus is full of like random weird expressions and weird poses at times that are simply inexplicable, and I have no explanation. So let's focus on the safe space line. This is not in character for Apollo. He doesn't usually talk this way, so it just feels like random and kind of pointless. Like this line doesn't add anything to the scene. This is, again, something that I, as a reader, could not even begin to try to explain to you. Now, I write comics with jokes. I can tell you that if you have a joke, even just a weird line such as this, and you really, really, really want it to happen, you can set it up. If the creator was dead set on having Apollo say this line at this scene for any reason, yeah, this could have been set up. So what if Apollo, when nervous or stressed or whatever, had a habit of consistently saying dumb things like this? Like, so whenever he's arguing with Persephone in the kitchen scene and things are escalating and he's about to start threatening her, he could be like, don't you want to hashtag be that girl? And then whenever he's arguing with Hades outside of Artemis's house, he could be like, man, she's not into you, you're old AF, and then could start to like be extra nasty and threatening and so on. So if Apollo had this habit of saying nonsense when the situation is about to seriously escalate, then this safe space line would A, be in character, and B, serve a purpose. It would be a signal to the reader that things are going to get worse. It would still be silly, but it would actually contribute to the scene. So yeah, like you can include silly things, silly lines, silly bits, but they can be done in a way that doesn't, I mean, I guess that the tone is technically inconsistent, but the character is being consistent. Yeah, so I could make a whole video series on like tone and tonal shifts and why people do it and when people do it and like different, I think there's also different cultural expectations as well. But yeah, I'll wrap up this video with this final question or consideration, I guess. When the tone is inconsistent or something is out of place in a scene, like a joke in an action scene or something, does it actually benefit the story in some way? And does it make sense? Like, is it in character? And also, if you are a writer, the next question is, if you see something that is inconsistent or different or seems quote unquote out of place in a scene, like, did I do this intentionally? If so, why? And does it do what I intended it to do? So yeah, like I said earlier, you can't know creator intent unless you're told, but there are times that really make you wonder. And to be honest, apparently unintentional changes in tone, things that just completely take you out of a scene, they can be delightful and like, you know, in an unintentionally funny way. Like how in Jab We Met, where the main character considers ending his own life by jumping in front of what is very obviously a model train. Yeah, a tiny little model train. I'm not kidding. This actually happened in a real movie that was released in theaters. And it's not like they didn't have access to trains. There are other real trains in this movie. And this whole scene is taken, it's played so seriously. I love it so much. The use of this model train just destroys the scene so much. And like, maybe this was intended. I don't know. But it is simply amazing. Have you ever run into any weird or funny or jarring examples of tonal changes or things that don't fit a scene but are played completely serious or whatever? Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you in another video. Bye bye!